Are you a lifelong fan of General Hospital?
Are you a new fan who wants to know more about the history of the show?
Do you enjoy talking about the show with others?
Do you find yourself yelling at the TV?
Is your self-care an hour a day in Port Charles?
If so, we invite you to join hosts
Amanda Kimmel
and Shannon Coach at the place where all the hidden conversations take place and secrets are revealed.
Meet us at Pier 54,
a General Hospital fan podcast.
Hello. Hi. Welcome to the Port Charles 411. Today we are discussing or sharing the background of the Quartermaine Gatehouse, which was submitted to us from Kim. So thank you so much for the suggestion. Really, if you have any suggestions on things that you would like to know more about, people you'd like to know more about, storylines, I know that we have said if there's a story you would like to share with us,
right?
Obviously, we would love to have you do a 411 and tell us about maybe your favorite past storyline or character or something like that. But if there's something you specifically want to know about that we haven't mentioned, or if we have mentioned it and you're like, hey, so when are you going to do this one? Just email us, pier54podcast@gmail.com. And I don't know when we'll do it, but it'll at least be on our radar that you want us to.
Eventually. We'll get there eventually.
Yes, we are going to start Bobby soon. I do.
I'm not ready.
I'm not either, but it's going to have to happen.
Yeah.
But so this was a fun little, not necessarily like a deep dive, but a couple things that I had completely forgotten about.
Mm-hmm.
There's also not a whole lot of information about it, but we're using General Hospital fandom. And then there's a couple message boards from soaps.com. Yeah, there's just one message board from soaps.com that we'll probably use. And the travel guide to Port Charles.
Thanks, Lucy.
So the Quartermaine Gatehouse is the gatehouse of the wealthy Quartermaine family on the property of the Quartermaine Mansion, which considered doing the whole thing today, and that would just take
quite some time.
Yes, it would. But that's going to be a fun one when we do it.
Yes.
In 1983, Jimmy Lee Holt arrived in Port Charles, spitefully announcing that he was Edward Quartermaine's illegitimate son. Unable to deny this sordid truth, Edward was forced to accept that he had sired a child with his past mistress. Jimmy Lee teamed up with Alan's mistress, Susan Moore, when Crane Tolliver revealed that he was still legally married to Lila Quartermaine. Crane gave his unsigned divorce papers to Jimmy Lee on his deathbed, and Jimmy Lee used them to his advantage by moving onto the Quartermaine property and into the gatehouse. After Susan was found murdered at her cottage, Alan attempted to move his son, Jason Morgan, into the mansion. However, Monica was so outraged that she threatened to move into the gatehouse as she didn't want Alan's illegitimate child on the property. Jason then stayed in the gatehouse with Jimmy Lee.
Oh my gosh.
And they were joined by Heather Weber, who teamed with Jimmy to try to gain custody of baby Jason. And of course, the six-figure trust fund. We did talk about this when we covered Jimmy Lee.
I didn't realize that she kicked him out to the gatehouse.
Their plan was thwarted when Monica finally allowed Jason to live up at the mansion. Jimmy Lee's mother, Beatrice Lesser, overdosed on Lila's heart medication thanks to Edward. And Jimmy Lee got $20 million in exchange for his silence. So that was $1983. Wow. Hold on.
Wow.
What is 20? Oh, that's not a comma. No, I forgot a zero. Hold on. That would be the equivalent of $61,805,020.08.
Don't forget that 8 cents.
Don't forget the 8 cents.
That's very important.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Jimmy would later invite Celia Quartermaine and Grant Putnam to live with him as well. Celia would end up leaving Grant and marrying Jimmy. However, this was short-lived as they divorced and she left town just a few years later. Jimmy Lee would remain until 1986 when he left town.
Yeah, I do not remember him. I mean, I guess I shouldn't remember stuff from 6, but I felt like I remembered 80s stuff. So Ned Quartermaine eventually took residence in the Quartermaine Gatehouse with his mother, Tracy Quartermaine, when she returned to town. Larry Ashton, Ned's father, also joined them for a short time until Tracy kicked Ashton out. Ned would take primary residence here for years along with his various girlfriends, including Jenny Eckerd, Lois Cirillo, Chloe Morgan, and Alexis Davis.
I don't like how that was written.
No, it's like he had a different friend every week.
Right. During a storm in 1992, Tracy goes into labor while trapped with Jenny at the Gatehouse. She later gives birth to her son, Dylan Quartermaine, at General Hospital. I did not know that she was in labor with Dylan in the Gatehouse.
1992. I feel like they aged him down.
No. Because when he came back, he was like a teenager in 5 years.
But now they seem to keep him younger, I feel like.
So he was 1992. Okay, let's go to Dylan. Yeah, they aged him 5 years. He should be 30. He's 36, but he should only be 30.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say.
Because when he came back, so he left in 1992 as a baby.
Right,
But then when he came back.
Yes.
Oh, gosh. Okay, so we're just going to have to do.
Sorry, I wasn't trying to take us down the Dylan storyline, but yeah, he was aged up, but then like held at that point.
Well, that's what we've talked about, though. We don't feel like once they become adults, like once they're after 25, like they don't age until they kind of do, but I don't know.
Well, that's
Is that making any sense to anybody else?
People like Sam can hook up with father and son, and it's somehow not weird, even though it is.
Correct.
Anyway, after Paul Hornsby, Dylan's father, Jenny, Tracy, and Dylan left town, Ned was left with the Gatehouse. He later had the downstairs double as the office of L&B Records when Lois Cirillo moved in. In 1995, Alan and Monica's son AJ Quartermaine gets into a fight with his family while drunk and takes off. Jason chases after AJ and tries to stop him from taking Ned's new car, but when AJ refuses, Jason hops in with him and the two end up crashing on the property just outside the Gatehouse. Jason was left with permanent brain damage.
And then in 2003, Edward makes a play to get an heir. I don't like how this is written. To get an heir out of Ned and Alexis's unborn child, Christina Corinthos Davis. It sounds like he is trying to get Christina to produce an heir.
Right.
When what he means is he is hoping that Ned is the father of Christina so that there is an heir in the bloodline. Yeah. However, Edward suspected the true father of Alexis's child was Sonny Corinthos. He made sure Ned got full custody of Christina, but when Ned refused to move into the house, Edward set fire to the Gatehouse where Ned and Alexis were staying, hoping to force them to move into the mansion. You could have just bought mice.
Nope, got to burn it to the ground.
You could have snakes.
Nope.
Some kind of an infestation. Even termites.
Nope, burn it to the ground.
Fire. The Gatehouse was later said to have been burned to the ground.
I mean, that's one way of getting things done. In 2020, wow, they let it sit for a while.
Yeah.
In 2020, the Gatehouse was restored, and when the threat of Nell Benson was gone, Michael and Willow Tate amicably annul. I thought that said annual for a second. I was like, I mean, they do get married a lot, but I don't think it's quite annual yet. Sorry. Michael and Willow Tate amicably annul their marriage, and Willow moves into the Gatehouse to stay in Michael's son Wiley Corinthos' life. Michael and Wiley plan to move in with her soon after until Willow put their new relationship on hold while her boyfriend, Harrison Chase, was in the hospital with an unknown illness. Only Wiley moved in. She marries a dying Chase who recovers after given a last-minute cure. Willow starts secretly sleeping with Michael as Chase is in a wheelchair. Poor Chase.
So they failed to mention that Chase moved in.
You're right.
He did move in, right?
Yeah.
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 And then in August 2021, Chase and Austin Gatlin Holt check upstairs at the Gatehouse and discover that Willow has been sleeping with Michael recently. A month later, Michael, Willow, and Chase agree that the marriage is over.
I'm glad they needed all three to get in on that.
Later, Michael moved himself into the Gatehouse too.
The original address was said to be 66 and a half Harborview Road.
I like that they give this next one. This new restored set was previously used for Sonny Corinthos' safe house.
That's cool.
Yes. Oh my gosh, we need to do a deep dive on how the sets have been.
Yeah.
They need to give us that information though, because that is.
Right, because we love to guess whose house used to be whose.
But now the address is 312 Harborview Road.
Maybe when it got redone, it got a whole new life. I don't know.
Maybe. And then the only thing that is mentioned in Lucy's book is that the Gatehouse the estate was originally featured This estate originally featured a home for the grooms and stable boys at the turn of the century. Most recently, it has been inhabited by Ned and his wife Lois until it burned to the ground. So this is...
But that's making it sound like Lois lived there when it burned down.
Right.
When this says it was Alexis because he wanted to move Christina into the house.
Yes. And then down in the footnotes, it says, before it burnt to a crisp, the gatehouse was located at 66.5 Harborview Road.
Okay.
Here's my question. When do we ever see the address that we need to know that it is now 312?
I don't know. If you want to send Willow a letter, you need the right address.
Let's start mailing them letters.
To those addresses. I wonder where
Yeah.
they go.
But then we did not go through the scrapbook to see if there was anything mentioned about the gatehouse. But then over on soaps.com, there was a message board, I guess. People still use these. And it says, does anyone remember the Quartermaine Gatehouse? And it starts with, I expected Nell to cry to Monica about needing a place to live soon. And this is from February of 2018. So it would have been before
they
rebuilt it.
Yeah.
I waited for Monica to invite her to live at her house. Does anyone remember if the Quartermaine Gatehouse or guest cottage was rebuilt after the fire? At one time, Ned lived in the guest house. This was at the time Ned dated Alexis, and Alexis and Jax were married in name only. Jax was in love with Lila's distant cousin Chloe. Chloe and Ned pretended to be a couple. Guys, we did an entire 411 about this. As I remember, Chloe was killed off by Nicholas's father, good old Stavros. No, I don't think he was good, is in the parentheses. Framed Stefan for the murder. I'm not confusing the guest house with the boathouse. A lot went on at the boathouse, too.
She's right. Like, good job.
And then people kept remembering, didn't Jimmy Lee Holt also live in the guest house? Christina stayed there. When did Christina stay there? I guess when she was a baby?
Yeah.
It's the gatehouse. Susan Moore and Heather Weber lived there with Jason when he was a baby. I know that Ned and Lois lived there at one other time. I'm not sure who else lived there, though. Jimmy Lee stayed in the guest house with Jason and Heather because Monica didn't want him in the house, so Jimmy Lee stayed with him. LOL.
Oh, my gosh.
It's the same house that Morgan and Kiki lived in when they were together. Oh, is this the same house? And then someone corrects and says, no, that was the boathouse.
Right.
Yes, the gatehouse has an upstairs. Both Ned and Lois lived upstairs, while the downstairs was the offices for L&B, which we talked a lot about in the L&B 411 that we did.
And when it was L&B, the entrance was to the left.
Yeah.
And now the entrance is to the right.
Correct. Well, this one
at least it did burn to the ground.
Exactly.
Right. You can start from scratch then.
Thank you. I had forgotten the details of Ned and Lois. I think Lois brought Jasper Jax to town to take over ELQ. She wanted to get Ned away from ELQ. I must have been doing something else. Oh, that was just a side comment for no reason.
Right.
Not for no reason, but they were saying why they didn't remember. And then just thanks for the info. So I think it's fun that people go on these. I should probably go on them more. Maybe we'd be able to get some more info. But there was also something that I saw, and I can't find the exact article, but someone mentioned that it was Lila lived there. But I don't think
Lila would have lived there. I feel like if Lila lived there, if someone needed to leave the Quartermaine mansion, Lila would have kicked Edward out, not Lila went and stayed there.
Yeah. And I don't think that Edward would have needed to have been kicked out. He would have
extra bedrooms to stay in.
Yeah. But not just that, I feel like he would have voluntarily gone.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, so the current people living there are Michael, Willow, Wiley, and Amelia.
Aw, Amelia.
Yes. I wish that there was more. So, I mean, that was a short and sweet.
But I didn't realize, I still learned something from that because I did not realize that when Monica said that Jason couldn't live in the house, that he stayed there with Heather.
Right. I thought that he and Susan were in the house.
Right. I thought she wouldn't let Susan
hold on, let's
and
see.
him live there.
All right, because we did Jimmy Lee. We do need to do the Susan Moore murder sometime. Because it said something about Susan had a cottage. Where was that cottage? So the Moore cottage. All right, we're doing like a little teeny tiny little, because this is obviously going to only have to do with this. The Moore cottage was a cottage in the city of Port Charles. A furious Alan Quartermaine moves out of the Quartermaine mansion in October 1981 and shacks up with Susan Moore at her cottage after Susan kicks Alan out because he refuses to divorce Monica Quartermaine, and he arranges for a divorce in January of 1982. And they reunite. In January of 1983, Scott Baldwin uses Jason Moore's.
Yeah?
He was known as Jason Moore. I thought he was always known as Jason Quartermaine before Jason Morgan. Oh, well. Uses his trust for the renovation of the waterfront piers and builds a mall. Susan takes power of attorney away from Scott and blocks access to what is left of Jason's trust fund. She then kicks him out of the house. Susan is later approached by Crane Tolliver, the first husband of Lila. She wanted to blackmail them, but Crane doesn't want his name to be brought up. On October 11th.
Nope.
February 11th. Wow. On February 11th, 1983, Crane shoots and kills Susan at her home, which is the cottage.
Okay.
All of the Quartermaines were all at the top of the suspect list, but it was later revealed that Crane had shot Susan when she attempted to back out of their deal. And then the trivia says the Moore cottage could apparently be seen from the Quartermaine mansion, not to be confused with the Quartermaine Gatehouse, which I think we did.
Yeah.
Because I agree. Her address was 230 Kendall Avenue.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm just going to make a little map. Start filling it in.
Seriously. Oh, there's Bobby and D.L. Brock at the cottage. Okay. So yeah, I think a lot of people thought that too.
Right.
Probably especially since Jason lived in both.
Right.
So, okay. All right. So what weird place in Port Charles, I guess, do you want to know about next? We should do the entire Quartermaine mansion. That would be fun.
That would be fun.
I feel like that would have to be a deep dive, though.
Yes.
How many times has there been damage done?
Well, I mean, if Edward just sets whole gatehouses on fire, then who's to say they don't just burn down the whole house?
So I guess join us on Monday as we recap this week's shows and see is the gatehouse being used correctly? I don't know. Is it being burned down? Is it being smashed?
We'll find out.
Is it still Michael, Willow, Amelia, and Wiley?
We'll see.
Okay.
Have a good weekend.
And we'll meet you at the pier.
Bye.
Bye.
If you enjoyed today's show, we invite you to go to pier54podcast.com to subscribe on your favorite platform. Don't forget to leave us a review.
And you can also follow us on many social media channels. Just search for Pier 54 Podcast. Also, we are not perfect, so if there is something that we missed or messed up, just let us know by emailing us at pier54podcast@gmail.com.